Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivjakacharya Satarata Sri Sri Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder charges Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivjakacharya Satarata Sri Sri Maharaj. His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Anantikoti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Srimati Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All gloriously assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we're on third canto, chapter 3, text number 3. Samahuta Bhishmaka Kanyaya Ye Shriya Savarnena Babhushayaisam Gandharva Vritya Mishatam Svabhagam Jare Padam Murdni Dadat Suparnaha Samahuta Bhishmaka Karnyaya Ye Shriya Savarnena Bubhushayasham Gandharva Vritya Mishatam Svabhagam Jare Padam Murdni Dadat Suparnaha Samahuta Bhishmaka Kanyaya Ye Shriya Savarnena Bubhushayasam Gandharva Vritya Mishatam Svabhagam Jare Padam Murdni Dadat Suparnaha Samahuta Bhishmaka Kanyaya Ye Shriya Savarnena Bubhushayasam Gandharva Vritya Mishatam Svabhagam Jare Padam Murdni Dadat Suparnaha. Vaishnavis. Om Gyanatimirañjasa Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshuramitam Jain Tasmai Sigurave Namah Sichitani Manovisam Stapitam Yena Buddha Swami Bhagaramam Samatantikam Anchakalpa Tubishaki Pasan Vipla Paritana Pavanibhya Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So, synonyms. Samahutaha, invited. Bhishmaka, of King Bhishmaka. Kanyaya, by the daughter. Yea, all those. Shriyaha, fortune. Savarnena, by a similar sequence. Bubhushaya, expecting to be so. Esham, of them. Gandharva, in marrying. Vritya, by such a custom. Mishatam, carrying so. Swabhagam, own share. Jare, took away. Padam, feet. Murdni, on the head. Dadat, placed. Suparnaha, Garuda. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Attracted by the beauty and fortune of Rukmini, the daughter of King Bhishmaka, many great princes and kings assembled to marry her. But Lord Krishna, stepping over the other hopeful candidates, carried her away as his own share, as Garuda carried away nectar. Purport. Princess Rukmini, the daughter of King Bhishmaka, was actually as attractive as fortune itself, because she was as valuable as gold both in color and in value. Since the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is the property of the Supreme Lord, Rukmini was actually meant for Lord Krishna. But Shishupal was selected as her bridegroom by Rukmini's elder brother, although King Bhishmaka wanted his daughter to be married to Krishna. Rukmini invited Krishna to take her away from the clutches of Shishupal. So when the bridegroom Shishupal came there with his party with the desire to marry Rukmini, Krishna all of a sudden swept her from the scene, stepping over the heads of all the princes there, just as Garuda carried away nectar from the hands of the demons. This incident will be clearly explained in 10th canto. Vishnu Gada Krishna Stapale Srimari Bhakti Vedanta Samhita Namaste Saraswati Gaurabhani Bhyanase Srinyavara Bhatskachari Starni. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Alright, so I brought the Krishna book with me because I thought since it's a fast day today, I'd read a little bit about this pastime, which we don't have an opportunity to hear about very often, if we even get to hear about it. So I thought maybe we can just say a few things and then read from a certain point in the Krishna book. So Krishna, he kidnapped Rukmini. Rukmini was to marry Krishna, of course, as we see here, and that style of marriage between Rukmini and Krishna was called Rakshasa style, because Rukmini was captured by Krishna in the presence of all the rivals such as Shishupal, Janardhan, and Salva. These were some of the nemesis against Krishna. And so him stealing her in that particular arena is called Rakshasa style of marriage. And as Prabhupada says here in the purport, she was snatched away from that marriage area by Krishna, exactly as Garuda, he snatched the nectar from the demons, pot of nectar. Garuda came down and snatched it away from them. And as we see here, Rukmini was actually exquisitely beautiful. She was actually known as Ruchira Nina, which means that her face was as beautiful as an expanding lotus flower. There you can take a look at Rukmini there. Her face is that beautiful, like an expanding lotus flower. Because she was the daughter of a great king, Bhishmaka, so many sages and saints would come and visit the king, like Narada Muni. And these sages and saints, they would speak about Krishna. And that's where Rukmini learned about the 6 qualities of Krishna and how beautiful he was and who he was. So she heard a lot about Krishna through these sages and saints and his transcendental qualities. But Krishna also knew about Rukmini. He had heard about her also. And she had a lot of transcendental qualities also. She was a reservoir of transcendental qualities. She was intelligent. She was liberal-minded. She was very liberal, very minded. She had exquisite beauty, as you can see here of her exquisite beauty. And she had a very righteous nature about her. She was very righteous, well-being and righteous. With these qualities, Krishna felt that, yes, Rukmini should be my wife. And all the members of the family agreed also, except for her Rukmini's elder brother, Rukmi, who was very envious of Krishna. And his association wasn't very good, so he wanted to betroth his sister to Shishupal. And this was very displeasing to Rukmini. She became very unhappy. But by her nature and by her qualities, she didn't just sit down and just cry. She immediately took action. And her action was that she immediately wrote a letter to Krishna. And she found a qualified Brahmana that would deliver that letter to Krishna. She wasn't going to give up. She was going to explain in that letter why she should actually be his queen. So I thought we could start reading in that particular part where the Brahmana delivers the letter, the message to Krishna. It'll take about 20 minutes. I think we should finish. But anyway, there's no breakfast. A great opportunity to hear about Rukmini. They look so gorgeous this morning. I couldn't believe it. I was looking at these deities and boy, we should be very grateful and very thankful to our pujaris because they're bringing out the essence of Rukmini and Dwarkadish. Every day I see them and I'm just amazed. And Lord Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra is unbelievable. And even, Shishi Gornitai. So we're very fortunate. And here we are today, we're reading about this wonderful event of Krishna kidnapping Rukmini. And now we can see why. Look at her beauty. It's exquisite. Okay, starting with the Krishna book. Reaching the gate of Dwarka, the Brahmana informed the doorkeeper of his arrival, and the doorkeeper led him to the place where Krishna was sitting on a golden throne. Since the Brahmana had the opportunity of being Rukmini's messenger, he was fortunate enough to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the original cause of all causes. A Brahmana is the spiritual teacher of all the social divisions. Lord Sri Krishna, in order to teach everyone the Vedic etiquette of how to respect a Brahmana, immediately got up and offered him his throne. Can you imagine Krishna? He got up off his throne and then offered it to Brahmana. When the Brahmana was seated on the golden throne, what was amazing to me when I read this was that the Brahmana actually accepted the throne of Krishna's throne to sit on. This is phenomenal, unbelievable. Krishna does reciprocate with his devotees. Lord Shri Krishna began to worship him exactly in the manner in which the demigods worship Krishna. In this way, he taught everyone that worshiping his devotee is more valuable than worshiping himself. In due time, the Brahmana took his bath, accepted his meals, and took to rest on a bedstead completely bedecked with soft silk. As he was resting, Lord Shri Krishna silently approached and with great respect put the Brahmana's legs on his lap and began to massage them. In this way, Krishna appeared before the Brahmana and said, quote, "My dear Brahmana, I hope that you are executing the religious principles without any difficulty, and that you are that your mind is always in a peaceful condition. Different classes of people in the social system are engaged in various professions, and when one inquires as to the well-being of a particular person, it must be done on the basis of that person's occupation. Therefore, when one inquires to the welfare of a Brahmana, the question should be worded according to his condition of life so as not to disturb him. A peaceful mind is the basis for becoming truthful, clean, equipoised, self-controlled, and tolerant. Thus, by attaining knowledge and knowing its practical application in life, one becomes convinced about the absolute truth." The Brahmana knew Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and still he accepted the respectful service of the Lord on the grounds of Vedic social convention. Lord Shri Krishna was playing just like a human being, belonging to the Kshatriya division of the social system, and being a young boy, it was his duty to show respect to such a Brahmana. Lord Krishna continued, "O best of all the Brahmanas, you should always remain satisfied, because if a Brahmana is always self-satisfied, he will not deviate from his prescribed duties. And simply by sticking to one's prescribed duties, everyone, especially the Brahmana, can attain the highest perfection of all desires. Even if a person is as opulent as the king of heaven, Indra, if he is not satisfied, he inevitably has to transmigrate from one planet to another. Such a person can never be happy under any circumstances, but if a person's mind is satisfied, even if he's bereft of his high position, he can be happy living anywhere and everywhere." End of quote. This instruction of Krishna to the Brahmana is very significant. The purport is that a true Brahmana should not be disturbed in any situation. In this modern age of Kali Yuga, the so-called Brahmanas have accepted the abominable position of the Sudras, or less than Sudras, and still want to pass as qualified Brahmanas. Actually, a qualified Brahmana always sticks to his own duties and never accepts those of a Sudra or of one less than a Sudra. It is advised in the authorized scriptures that a Brahmana may, under awkward circumstances, accept the profession of a Kshatriya or even a Vaishya, but never is he to accept the profession of a Sudra. Lord Krishna declared that a Brahmana should never be disturbed by any adverse conditions of life if he scrupulously sticks to his religious principles. In conclusion, Lord Shri Krishna said, "I offer my respectful obeisances to the Brahmana and Vaishnavas, because the Brahmanas are always self-satisfied, and the Vaishnavas are always engaged in actual welfare activities for the human society. They are the best friends of the people in general. Both are free from the false egoism and are always in a peaceful condition of mind." Lord Krishna then desired to know about the rulers in the Brahmana's kingdom. So he inquired whether the citizens of the kingdom were all happy. A king's qualification is judged by the temperament of the people in the kingdom. If they are very happy in all respects, it is to be understood that the king is honest and executing his duties rightly. Krishna said that the king in whose kingdom the citizens are happy is very dear to him. Of course, Krishna could understand that the Brahmana had come with a confidential message. Therefore he said, "If you have no objection, I am giving you permission to speak about your mission." Thus, being very satisfied by these transcendental pastimes with the Lord, the Brahmana narrated the whole story of his mission to come and see Krishna. He got out the letter which Rukmini had written to Krishna and said, These are the words of Princess Rukmini. My dear Krishna, O infallible and most beautiful one, any human being who happens to hear about your transcendental form and pastimes immediately absorbs through his ears your name, fame, and qualities. Thus all his material pangs subside, and he fixes your form in his heart. Through such transcendental love for you, he sees you always within himself, and by this process all his desires become fulfilled. Similarly, I have heard of your transcendental qualities. I may be shameless in expressing myself so directly, but you have captivated me and taken my heart. You may suspect that I am an unmarried girl, young in age, and may doubt my steadiness of character, but my dear Mukunda, you are the supreme lion among the human beings, the supreme person among persons. Any girl, although not yet out of her home, or any woman who may be of the highest chastity would desire to marry you, being captivated by your unprecedented character, knowledge, opulence, and position. I know that you are the husband of the goddess of fortune, and that you are very kind toward your devotees. Therefore I have decided to become your eternal maidservant. My dear Lord, I dedicate my life and soul unto your lotus feet. I have accepted your lordship as my selected husband, and I therefore request you to accept me as your wife. You are the supreme powerful, O lotus-eyed one. Now I belong to you. If that which is enjoyable for the lion to eat is taken away by the jackal, it will be a ludicrous affair. Therefore I request you to immediately take care of me before I am taken away by Shishupal and other princes like him. Haribol! What a great letter. What a great message. All right, continuing. My dear Lord, in my previous life I may have done public welfare work like digging wells and growing trees, or pious activities such as performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices and serving the superior spiritual master, the Brahminas and Vaishnavas. By these activities perhaps I have pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. If this is so, then I wish that you, Lord Krishna, the brother of Lord Balaram, would please come here and catch hold of my hand so that I may not be touched by Shishupal and his company. End of quote. Rukmini's marriage with Shishupal was already settled. Therefore, she suggested that Krishna kidnap her so that she might be changed, so that this might be changed. This sort of marriage, in which the girl is kidnapped by force, is known as Rakshasa, and is practiced among the Kshatriyas, or the administrative, martial spirited type men. Because her marriage was already arranged to take place the next day, Rukmini suggested that Krishna come there incognito to kidnap her and then fight with Shishupal and his allies like the king of Magadha. Knowing that no one could conquer Krishna and that he would certainly emerge victorious, she addressed him as Ajita, the unconquerable. Rukmini told Krishna not to be concerned that many of her family members, including other women, might be wounded or even killed if the fighting took place within the palace. As the king of a country thinks of diplomatic ways to achieve his object, similarly Rukmini, being the daughter of a king, was diplomatic in suggesting how this unnecessary and undesirable killing could be avoided. She explained that it was the custom of her family to visit the temple of the goddess Durga, their family deity, before marriage. The Kshatriya kings were mostly staunch Vaishnavas, worshipping Lord Vishnu in either the Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayan form. Still, for their material welfare, they used to worship the goddess Durga. They never made the mistake, however, of accepting the demigods as the Supreme Lord on the level of Vishnu Tattva, as did some of the less intelligent men. In order to avoid the unnecessary killing of her relatives, Rukmini suggested that it would be easiest for him to kidnap her while she was either going from the palace to the temple or else while she was returning home. She also explained to Krishna why she was so anxious to be married to him, even though her marriage was to take place with Shishupal, who was also qualified, being the son of a great king. Rukmini said that she did not think anyone was greater than Krishna, not even Lord Shiva, who is known as Mahadev, the greatest of all demigods. Lord Shiva also seeks the pleasure of Lord Krishna in order to be delivered from his entanglement in the quality of ignorance within the material world. In spite of the fact that Lord Shiva is the greatest of all great souls, Mahatmas, he keeps on his head the purifying water of the Ganges, which emanates from a hole in this material universe made by the toe of Lord Vishnu. Lord Shiva is in charge of the material quality of ignorance, and in order to keep himself in a transcendental position, he always meditates on Lord Vishnu. Therefore, Rukmini knew very well that obtaining the favor of Krishna was not an easy job. If even Lord Shiva must purify himself for that purpose, surely it would be difficult for Rukmini, who was only the daughter of a Kshatriya king. Thus, she desired to dedicate her life to observing severe austerities and penances, such as fasting and going without bodily comforts. If it were not possible in this lifetime to gain Krishna's favor, by these activities she was prepared to do the same lifetime after lifetime. In the Bhagavad-Gita it is said that pure devotees of the Lord execute devotional service with great determination. Such determination, as exhibited by Rukmini Devi, is the only price for purchasing Krishna's favor and is the way to ultimate success in Krishna consciousness. After explaining Rukmini Devi's statement to Krishna, the Brahmana said, "My dear Krishna, chief of the Yadu dynasty, I have brought this confidential message for you from Rukmini. Now it is placed before you for your consideration. After due deliberation, you can act as you please, but if you want to do something, you must do it immediately. There is not much time left for action." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 51st chapter of Krishna, Krishna the Ranchor. Okay, chapter 52. After this, we'll stop, but it's called Krishna Kidnaps Rukmini. After hearing Rukmini's statement, Lord Krishna was very pleased. He immediately shook hands with the Brahmana and said, "My dear Brahmana, I am very glad to hear that Rukmini is anxious to marry me, since I am also anxious to get her hand. My mind is always absorbed in the thought of the daughter of Bhishmaka, and sometimes I cannot sleep at night because I am thinking of her. I can understand that the marriage of Rukmini with Shishupal has been arranged by her elder brother in a spirit of animosity toward me. So I am determined to give a good lesson to all of these princes. Just as fire is extracted and utilized after manipulating ordinary wood, similarly, after dealing with these demoniac princes, I shall bring forth Rukmini like fire from their midst." Krishna, upon being informed of the specific date of Rukmini's marriage, became anxious to leave immediately. He asked his driver Daruka to harness the horses for his chariot and prepared to go to the kingdom of Vidarbha. The driver, just after hearing this order, brought Krishna's 4 special horses. The names and descriptions of these horses are mentioned in the Padma Purana. The first one, Saivya, was greenish. The second, Sugriva, was grayish like ice. The third, Meghapushpa, was the color of the new cloud. And last, Balahaka, was of ashen color. When the horses were yoked and the chariot ready to go, Krishna helped the Brahmana up and gave him a seat by his side. Immediately they started from Dwarka, and within one night arrived at the province of Vidarbha. The kingdom of Dwarka is situated in the western part of India, and Vidarbha is situated in the northern part. They are separated by a distance of not less than 1,000 miles. But the horses were so fast that they reached their destination, a town called Kundina, within one night, or at most 12 hours. Wow. That means the chariot is practically going 100 miles an hour. That's pretty amazing. It must have been off the ground because in those days, I'm sure the roads weren't like smooth. Probably a lot of bumps and dirt roads. So the chariot must have been floating. King Bhishmaka was not very enthusiastic about handing his daughter over to Shishupal, but he was obliged to accept a marriage settlement due to his affectionate attachment for his eldest son, who had negotiated it. As a matter of duty, he was decorating the city for the marriage ceremony and was acting in great earnestness to make it very successful. Water was sprinkled all over the streets and the city was cleansed very nicely. Since India is situated in a tropical zone, the atmosphere is always dry. Due to this, dust always accumulates on the streets and roads, so they must be sprinkled with water at least once a day, and in big cities like Calcutta, twice a day. The roads of Kundina were arranged with colored flags and festoons, and gates were constructed at particular crossings. The whole city was decorated very nicely. The beauty of the city was enhanced by the inhabitants, both men and women, who were dressed in washed clothes, decorated with sandalwood pulp, pearl necklaces, and flower garlands. Incense was burning everywhere, and fragrances like aguru scented the air. Priests and brahmanas were sumptuously fed, and, according to ritualistic ceremony, were given sufficient wealth and cows in charity. In this way, they were engaged in chanting Vedic hymns. The king's daughter, Rukmini, was exquisitely beautiful. She was very clean and had beautiful teeth. The auspicious sacred girdle was tied on her wrist. She was given various types of jewelry to put on and long silken cloth to cover the upper and lower parts of her body. Learned priests gave her protection by chanting mantras from the Samaveda, Rigveda, and Yajurveda. After this, they chanted mantras from the Atharva Veda and offered oblations in the fire to pacify the ominous conjunctions of different stars. King Bhishmaka was very experienced in dealing with the brahmanas and priests when such ceremonies were held. He specifically distinguished the brahmanas by giving them large quantities of gold and silver, grains, mixed with molasses, and cows decorated with golden ornaments. Dhamaghosh, Shishupal's father, executed all kinds of ritualistic performances to invoke good fortune for his own family. Shishupal's father was known as Dhamaghosh due to his superior ability to cut down unregulated citizens. Dhamma means curbing down, and Ghosh means famous, so he was famous for controlling the citizens. Dhamaghosh thought that if Krishna came to disturb the marriage ceremony, he would certainly cut him down with his military power. Therefore, after performing the various auspicious ceremonies, Dhamaghosh gathered his military divisions known as Madasravi. He took many elephants, garlanded them with golden necklaces, and many chariots and horses, which were similarly decorated. It appeared that Dhamaghosh, along with his son and other companions, was going to Kundina, not completely forgetting the marriage, but mainly intent on fighting. When Bhishmaka learned that Dhamaghosh and his party were arriving, he left the city to receive them. Outside the city gate, there were many gardens where the guests were welcome to stay. In the Vedic system of marriage, the bride's father receives a large party of the bridegroom and accommodates them in a suitable place for 2 or 3 days until the marriage ceremony is performed. The party led by Dhamaghosh contained thousands of men, among whom the prominent kings and personalities were Jarasandha and Dantavakra, Vidurath, and Pundarik. It was an open secret that Rukmini was meant to be married to Krishna, but that her elder brother, Rukmi, had arranged her marriage to Shishupal. There was also some whispering going on about a rumor that Rukmini had sent a messenger to Krishna Therefore, the soldiers suspected that Krishna might cause a disturbance by attempting to kidnap Rukmini. Even though they were not without fear, they were all prepared to give Krishna a nice fight in order to prevent the girl from being taken away. Sri Balaram received the news that Krishna had left for Kundina, accompanied only by a Brahmana. He also heard that Shishupal was there with a large number of soldiers. Suspecting that they would attack Krishna, Balaram took strong military divisions of chariots, infantry, horses, and elephants and arrived at the precinct of Kundina. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Rukmini was expecting Krishna to arrive, but when neither he nor the Brahmana who took her message appeared, she became full of anxiety and began to think how unfortunate she was. There is only one night between today and my marriage day, and still neither the Brahmana nor Shyamasundar has returned. I cannot ascertain any reason for this. Having little hope, she thought perhaps Krishna had found reason to become dissatisfied and had rejected her fair proposal. As a result, the Brahmana might have become disappointed and not come back. Although she was thinking of various causes for the delay, she expected them both at every moment. Rukmini further began to think that demigods such as Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the goddess Durga might have been displeased. It is generally said that the demigods become angry when they are not properly worshipped. For instance, when Indra found that the inhabitants of Vrindavan were not worshipping him, Krishna having stopped the Indra Yagya, he became very angry and wanted to chastise them. Thus Rukmini was thinking that since she did not worship Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma very much, they might have become angry and tried to frustrate her plan. Similarly, she thought that the goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, might have taken the side of her husband. Lord Shiva is known as Rudra, and his wife is also known as Rudrani. Rudrani and Rudra refer to those who are very accustomed to putting others in a distressed condition, so they might cry forever. Rukmini was thinking of the goddess Durga as Girija, the daughter of the Himalayan mountains. The Himalayan mountains are very cold and hard, and she thought of the goddess Durga as hard-hearted and cold. In her anxiety to see Krishna, Rukmini, who was after all still a child, thought this way about the different demigods. The gopis worship goddess Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband. Similarly, Rukmini was thinking of the various types of demigods, not for material benefit, but in respect to Krishna. Praying to the demigods to achieve the favor of Krishna is not irregular, and Rukmini was fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Even though she pacified herself by thinking that the time for Govinda to arrive had not yet expired, Rukmini felt that she was hoping against hope. She began to shed tears, and when they became more forceful, she closed her eyes in helplessness. While Rukmini was in such deep thought, auspicious symptoms appeared in different parts of her body. Trembling began to occur in her left eyelid and in her arms and thighs. When trembling occurs in these parts of the body, it is an auspicious sign indicating that something lucrative may be expected. Just then, Rukmini, full of anxiety, saw the Brahmana messenger. Krishna, being the super soul of all living beings, could understand Rukmini's anxiety. Therefore, he sent the Brahmana inside the palace to let her know that he had arrived. When Rukmini saw the Brahmana, she could understand the auspicious trembling of her body and immediately became elated. She smiled and inquired from him whether or not Krishna had already come. The Brahmana replied that the son of the Yadu dynasty, Shri Krishna, had arrived. He further encouraged her by saying that Krishna had promised to carry her away without fail. Rukmini was so elated by the Brahmana's message that she wanted to give him in charity everything she possessed. However, finding nothing suitable for a presentation, she simply offered him her respectful obeisances. The significance of offering respectful obeisances to a superior is that the one offering obeisances is obliged to the respected person. In other words, Rukmini implied that she would remain ever grateful to the Brahmana. Anyone who gets the favor of the goddess of fortune, as did this Brahmana, is without a doubt always happy in material opulence. When King Bhishmaka heard that Krishna and Balaram had come, he invited them to see the marriage ceremony of his daughter. Immediately he arranged to receive them along with their soldiers in a suitable garden house. As soon as was the Vedic custom, the king offered Krishna and Balaram honey and fresh washed cloth. He was hospitable not only to Krishna, Balaram, and kings such as Jarasandha, but he also received many other kings and princes, according to their respective personal strength, age, and material possessions. Out of curiosity and eagerness, the people of the Kundina assembled before Krishna and Balaram and began to drink the nectar of their beauty. With tearful eyes, they offered them their silent respects. They were very pleased, considering Lord Krishna the suitable match for Rukmini. They were so eager to unite Krishna and Rukmini that they began to pray to the personality of Godhead. My dear Lord, if we have performed any pious activities that you are satisfied with, kindly be merciful upon us and accept the hand of Rukmini. End of quote. It appears that Rukmini was a very popular princess, and all the citizens, out of intense love for her, prayed for her best fortune. In the meantime, Rukmini, being very nicely dressed and protected by bodyguards, came out of the palace to visit the temple of Ambika, the goddess of Durga. Deity worship in the temple had been in existence since the beginning of the Vedic culture. There is a class of men described in the Bhagavad-Gita as the Veda Vada Rata. They only believe in the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, but not in the temple worship. Such foolish people may take note here that although this marriage of Krishna and Rukmini took place more than 5,000 years ago, there were arrangements for temple worship. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord says, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. The worshippers of the demigods attained the abodes of the demigods. There were many people who worshipped the demigods and many who directly worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The system of demigod worship was directed mainly to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Ganesh. The sun god and the goddess Durga. Lord Shiva and the goddess Durga were worshipped even by the royal families. Other minor demigods were worshipped by silly, inferior people. As far as the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas are concerned, they simply worship Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the worship of the demigods is condemned but not forbidden. There it is clearly stated that the less intelligent class of men worship the different kinds of demigods for material benefit. On the other hand, even though Rukmini was the goddess of fortune, she went to the temple of the goddess Durga because the family deity was worshipped there. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that as Rukmini was proceeding towards the temple of the goddess Durga, within her heart she was always thinking of the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, when Rukmini went to the temple, it was not with the intention of an ordinary person who goes to beg for material benefits. Her only target was Krishna. When people go to the temple of a demigod, the objective is actually Krishna, since it is he who empowers the demigods to provide material benefits. We only got 2 pages left. As Rukmini proceeded toward the temple, she was very silent and grave. Her mother and her girlfriend were by her side, and the wife of a Brahmana was in the center. Surrounding her were royal bodyguards. This custom of a would-be bride going to the temple of a demigod is still practiced in India. As the procession continued, various musical sounds were heard, and bairis combined to make a sound which was not only auspicious, but very sweet to hear. There were thousands of wives of respectable Brahmanas present. These women were all dressed very nicely with suitable ornaments. They presented Rukmini with flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, and a variety of colorful garments to assist her in worshipping Lord Shiva and the goddess Durga. Some of these ladies were very old and knew perfectly well how to chant prayers to the goddess Durga and Lord Shiva. So, followed by Rukmini and others, they led these prayers before the deity. Rukmini offered her prayers to the deity by saying, "My dear goddess Durga, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, as well as your children." The goddess Durga has 4 famous children, 2 daughters, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the goddess of learning, Saraswati, and 2 famous sons, Lord Ganesh and Lord Kartikeya. They are all considered to be demigods and goddesses. Since the goddess Durga is always worshipped along with her famous children, Rukmini specifically offered her respectful obeisance to the deity in that way. However, her prayers were different. Ordinary people pray to the goddess Durga for material wealth, fame, profit, strength, and so on. Rukmini, however, desired to have Krishna for her husband, and therefore prayed to the deity to be pleased upon her and bless her. Since she desired only Krishna, her worship of the demigods is not condemned. While Rukmini was praying, a variety of items were presented before the deity, chief of which were water, different kinds of flames, incense, garments, garlands, and various foodstuffs prepared with ghee, such as puris and kachoris. There were also fruits, sugar cane, betel nut, and spices offered. With great devotion, Rukmini offered them to the deity according to the regulative principles directed by the old Brahmana ladies. After this ritualistic ceremony, the ladies offered the remnants of the foodstuffs to Rukmini as prasadam, which she accepted with great respect. Then Rukmini offered her obeisances to the ladies and to the goddess Durga. After the business of deity worship was finished, Rukmini caught hold of the hand of one of her girlfriends and left the temple accompanied by others. All the princes and visitors who came to Kundina for the marriage were assembled outside the temple to see Rukmini. The princes were especially very eager to hear her to see her, because they all actually thought that they would have Rukmini as their wife. Struck with wonder upon seeing Rukmini, they thought that she was specially manufactured by the Creator to bewilder all the great chivalrous princes. Her body was well constructed, the middle portion being thin. She had green eyes, pink lips, and a beautiful face, which was enhanced by her scattered hair and by different kinds of earrings. Around her feet she wore jeweled lockets. The bodily luster and beauty of Rukmini appeared as if painted by an artist, perfectly presenting beauty, following the description of great poets. The breast of Rukmini is described as being a little bit high, indicating that she was just a youth, not more than 13 or 14 years old. Her beauty was specifically intended to attract the attention of Krishna. Although the princess gazed upon her beautiful features, she was not at all proud. Her eyes moved restlessly, and when she smiled very simply, like an innocent girl, her teeth appeared just like lotus flowers. Expecting Krishna to take her away at any moment, she proceeded very slowly towards her home. Her legs moved just like a full-grown swan, and her ankle bells tinkled very mildly. Has anyone ever seen a full-grown swan walk? I watched some swans. They walk amazing. They're like very fluent, very flowing. This is how Rukmini was walking. As already explained, the great chivalrous princes who assembled there were so overwhelmed by Rukmini's beauty that they almost became unconscious. Full of lust, they hopelessly desired Rukmini's hand, comparing their own beauty with hers. Srimati Rukmini, however, was not interested in any of them. In her heart, she was simply expecting Krishna to come and carry her away. As she was adjusting the ornaments on her left hand finger, she happened to look upon the princes and suddenly saw that Krishna was present amongst them. Although Rukmini had never before seen Krishna, she was always thinking of him. Thus, she had no difficulty in recognizing him amongst the princely order. Krishna, not being concerned with the other princes, immediately took the opportunity of placing Rukmini on his chariot, marked by a flag bearing an image of Garuda. He then proceeded slowly, without fear, taking away Rukmini exactly as a lion takes the deer from the midst of the jackals. Meanwhile, Balaram appeared on the scene with the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. Jarasandha, who had many times experienced defeat by Krishna, began to roar, "How is this? Krishna is taking Rukmini away from us without any opposition. What is the use in our being chivalrous fighters with arrows? My dear princess, just look, we are losing our reputation by this action. It is just like the jackal taking away the booty from the lion." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 52nd chapter. Krishna kidnaps Rukmini. Rukmini Dwakadesha ki jai. Jai. I want to thank all of you for staying through the reading. I thought it would be a very ecstatic thing to read. I haven't read this particular part of the Bhagavatam for many, many, many years. So when I looked at it, I thought, wow, why not? So thank you for being nice to stay and listen. Hare Krishna.